I've got some handy tips for you, potential Sinew backers. And I'm looking at, first of all, this was like the heavy bow that Will is getting, and it's a handsome bow. And again, I just the limb had a gink in it, and I don't feel I was careful enough. So when it's strung from the side view, it doesn't speak to me. So Will is going to get that one along with bow number 2, which is going to be a little jewel of a horse bow with those bent tab tips. And I think I've already talked about that. You can kind of see it goes in their shoulders, and then the tab, the tip, kind of like a lozenge, right? And I took my coping saw, almost sawed through it. Then I took a razor knife that holds, where are they? I got them somewhere. You know, just a standard, oh, there they are. These dealy bobbers. And I was able to slice through at an angle. So I created like a face cut when you're cutting down a tree. Put some glue in there, clamped that little tip to my shaving horse, hit it with a heat gun, the bow relaxed, boink, let it sit there until the glue is dry. And so that's a nice technique. And if you get too ambitious and it cracks right there and that little tip falls off, you can just sand it and then glue it on there. Because it's the sinew that goes over the top and then comes down here that holds it together. It's not the glue joint. The glue joint isn't going to be that strong. It's the sinew. And then keep in mind that the string is down here, right at the shoulders, not up here. And so there's very little stress on that thing to go like this. But that sinew will make it strong. It's kind of cool. Very thick through here. Sinew layer. Keeping that bend in there. So I sinew the heck out of there. Then I've got a nice thick second layer going to about here, and then it grades off to just a single layer. I didn't need to put multiple layers between here and here because leverage. Bow doesn't need it. So it's like graduation of sinew layers decreasing towards the tips. This is going to be a nice bow. And probably more realistic in weight than this bruiser of a thing that you could yank back to 75 pounds if you wanted and really thump things. This smaller bow, because it's a twofer, I did my way. This would be an actual within the range of pinch grip. Pinch release. Handy tip number 2 or 3. I lose track. There's so many handy tips. And so I was curious. When I was checking the alignment by setting it here and then rotating it 180 degrees and figuring out, you know, if the tips are still aligned, the way this snake worked, because I was mounting the bow when I was registering it for the big flip inside here. And so this snake really affected it. I came up with a method. Watch this. Tell your kids about it. I put the bow on the table, step 1, and then drew 2 Sharpie lines. I know right where to put that. Got it? And then I took 2 blocks of wood. Now it gets really complex. And I put tick marks on them. And I put that block there, so that tick mark is center of the tip. And guess what I'm going to do with this one? Now this is deceptive. If you were here, you would say this recurve isn't as much as this. But there's a gink in this that makes it kind of hard to judge from this angle sitting on the table. They're even. Okay, dead even. Rotate it 180 degrees. Stick it right there. Get that tip lined up. The tick marks fall within the limits of the width of the tips. And there's a little, you know, slop factor because there's like some wibblies in it. But yeah, it's lined up. Very good. Now this is a supposition. Picture this. Suppose I've got this bow. Pretend that I have a bow here. Now let's say the tips were a little like this and not straight up. I was wondering, keeping in mind that when the sinew dries, it'll put it into reflex. But this way, the sinew might keep it structurally sound as it's, to some degree, because it still could move. I was thinking, if I had this bow and these tips weren't like this, they are like that, not like that. And then I was to secure those with clamps to something while the sinew was drying. And maybe even, it's a thought experiment, not mounting this, but just securing the tips so the bow can go into reflex, but the tips are secured. When the sinew is dry, it might secure the bow in this position. If it started out in here and I secured it like this as the sinew was drying, and then the sinew was drying, it might keep it like that. That's something to think about, and still allow it to go into reflex, because I didn't mount this. All I did was secure the tips. Sure, when it goes into reflex, it's going to shorten the distance between my fingers, but that would almost be negligible, because the change in that reflex isn't going to really change that distance too much. That's mathematics. Talked about this. Let's see, what was another? I had another handy tip. I don't know if I already mentioned that I've got the sinew prepared for Carlos's bow, and I'll either sinew back it tonight after we watch Frasier or do it tomorrow morning at first light. Oh, talking about Cupid's bows again. Now, Cupid bow does not need to be an authentic horse bow. Boom, I just broke the internet. I made one this length, Osage, sinew-backed, Cupid's bow for a fellow, 60 inches. I think it was 60 inches or 58, and that was a magnificent bow. At that length, you could Cupid the heck out of it and get a massive draw length. Being a flat bow in Osage, sinew-backed, 60 inches long, depending on the weight, you know, if it was a 50-pound bow, you could get a 32-inch draw out of it, you know, so that would be a long draw bow. Kind of figure that theoretically the maximum draw length can be half the length of the bow. I know there's a lot of variables in here. It could be less, it could be a lot more, but it would be safe to say that with this 60-inch bow, Osage, properly constructed, tillered, sinew-backed, and Cupidized, because the Cupid, strike that, because you're going to lose a little bit because of the recurves. If it was just a gull wing, it would increase your potential draw length. But Cupids, in this length, if I Cupidize this, I could get a 30-inch draw out of it, half the length of the bow, because I do believe it's well built and well sinewed. Something to think about. You want a Cupid bow? Just make it a little longer. Cupid the heck out of it. If you wanted to kind of mimic, you know, an Asiatic bow, how about this? Shoo. Then put sayas on it, where you could have this length, 48 inches. The sayas will add length to it. Sinew back it, especially in Osage. I mean, this hickory bow could be turned into a longer draw bow with the sayas. I'm going to have to try that sometime. I know there's a fellow in Maine that would like to see me do that. I should do that after I do my round of elm bows. Welsh longbows. And then I was at the dollar store today buying my corn nuts and some baking soda. I happened to think, getting close to Halloween, I better start working on my English longbow, because I'm going to be Robin Hood for Halloween when I'm handing out candy to those little monsters. Now I know that it's time to close this video, because I'm just wandering all over the place. Have a good day. Thank you for watching.